Good morning, everyone. I want to talk to you today about something that can shift your life in a powerful direction. The message is simple but life-changing. So many of us are spending our energy trying to fix everything around us, trying to change people, trying to make things happen, worrying about the job, the relationship, the finances. But can I tell you something? The breakthrough you're waiting for doesn't start out there. It starts in here, in your mind, your heart, your habits, and your faith. True change doesn't begin when circumstances shift, when people start acting right, or when everything in life finally falls into place. Real lasting transformation begins within you. It starts with how you think, how you believe, how you choose to respond to life. Often, we spend a lot of energy trying to fix what's around us, trying to get people to treat us better, hoping situations will improve, praying for open doors. But if we don't take care of what's going on inside, none of those changes will last or bring peace. Your internal world is the root of your external experience. If you have peace on the inside, you'll find peace even in the middle of chaos. If you're confident in who you are, rejection won't destroy you. If your thoughts are healthy and faith-filled, even setbacks won't stop you from moving forward. But if you're anxious, bitter, angry, or insecure on the inside, no amount of success or praise from others will truly satisfy you. That's why focusing inward is not just important, it's essential. The mind is powerful. The way you think creates the lens through which you view your life. If your thoughts are filled with fear and doubt, you'll always feel like something is missing. Even in seasons of blessing, you'll be waiting for something to go wrong. But when your mind is aligned with truth and hope, when you believe that good things are ahead, you carry a different energy into every room you walk into. You become a light, not just to others, but to yourself. That shift starting in your mind has the power to change how you show up in your job, your relationships, and your purpose. It's also about what you believe deep down. You can say all the right things, but if your heart doesn't believe it, nothing sticks. That's why healing and growth are so vital. Some of us are walking around with wounds from years ago, things people said, mistakes we made, doors that closed, and we've let those moments define us. But when you start working on your internal beliefs, when you begin to see yourself the way God sees you, not the way life has tried to label you, that's when you start walking differently. Not with arrogance, but with a quiet confidence. Not with fear, but with peace. You start to carry yourself like someone who knows they have value. Internal change also includes your habits, what you feed your soul daily. Are you spending time renewing your mind with truth? Or are you constantly absorbing negativity, fear, and comparison? Are you speaking life over yourself or replaying your failures on a loop? The habits you build internally become the foundation of your external life. If you wake up every day and immediately go to worry or stress, you're setting the tone for the rest of your day. But if you choose to start your day with gratitude, with a declaration of faith, with quiet time in God's presence, everything around you begins to take on a new tone, even if nothing changes yet on the outside. Another part of this inner focus is taking responsibility. It's easy to blame others for how we feel or where we are in life, but growth comes when we say, even if they were wrong, I still have the power to heal. I still have the power to move forward. That mindset doesn't just make you stronger, it makes you unstoppable, because now your growth isn't dependent on whether people apologize, support you, or even understand you. It's dependent on your choice to keep going, to keep growing, to keep believing. When you invest in yourself spiritually, mentally, and emotionally, you begin to align with the life you've been praying for. You no longer chase peace, it flows from within. You no longer beg for respect, you carry it in how you hold your head up. You no longer feel like you're behind, you trust God's timing because you're doing your part right where you are. That's what it means to focus on yourself, not in a self-centered way, but in a self-aware, spiritually grounded way. And when that internal shift begins, everything around you starts to change in ways you couldn't have imagined. One of the most liberating truths you can embrace is that you can't control other people. You can't force them to understand you, treat you right, agree with you, or even see your value. Trying to do so is not only exhausting, it's impossible. And yet so many of us live under the weight of trying to fix or manage everything outside ourselves. We want others to change so we can feel better. We want circumstances to shift so we can finally have peace. But the truth is your power isn't found in controlling others. It's found in mastering yourself. What you can control is how you respond. You can control your attitude, your mindset, your words, your tone, and the energy you bring into a space. That's where your true strength lies. People may act unfairly. They may gossip, criticize, or let you down. But if you allow those actions to dictate your peace, your confidence, or your direction, you've given them control over your life. And that's not where your power belongs. When you stop trying to manage how others act and instead manage your own reactions, something begins to shift. You start walking in peace, not because everything is perfect, but because you've learned to protect your internal world. You realize that maturity means choosing not to attend every argument you're invited to. It means not letting someone else's negativity pull you into their chaos. It means recognizing that sometimes silence is stronger than defending yourself to people who've already made up their minds. There's a quiet strength in not needing to react to everything. You don't always have to prove your point. You don't always have to correct or explain. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is rise above it. That's not weakness, that's wisdom. Because people who are at peace with themselves don't need to win every battle. They don't need validation from every direction. They know who they are, and that identity isn't shaken by someone else's opinion. This kind of emotional self-control isn't about pretending things don't hurt. It's not about ignoring disrespect or acting like nothing bothers you. It's about acknowledging your emotions, but choosing to respond with purpose rather than impulse. You might feel hurt, angry, or disappointed, but you don't let those emotions drive your decisions. You take a step back, breathe, pray, and then decide how to move forward in a way that honors your peace and protects your growth. Learning to control your reactions also helps you create healthier boundaries. When you stop trying to please everyone or rescue people from their own consequences, you give yourself space to grow. You begin to understand that it's not your job to carry the emotional weight of every relationship. It's not your responsibility to make sure everyone is happy with your choices. The only person you are fully accountable for is yourself. Some people won't change. Some people won't see the error in how they treat others. But your freedom comes when you accept that you don't need them to change in order for you to move forward. You don't need closure from someone who's not willing to give it. You don't need approval from someone who doesn't value your heart. You can bless them, release them, and continue becoming everything God created you to be, regardless of their behavior. This mindset brings so much peace. It lifts the pressure of trying to manage the unmanageable. It helps you live lighter because you're no longer carrying responsibility for everyone else's actions. And it frees up your energy to focus on what truly matters, your own growth, healing, and alignment with God's purpose for your life. You begin to walk in authority, not because you control others, but because you control yourself. You don't let bitterness take root. You don't let anger lead the way. You stay grounded in faith, anchored in grace, and committed to your own progress. That doesn't mean you'll never get upset or feel discouraged, but it means you won't stay stuck there. You'll rise above it, not because it's easy, but because it's necessary for your peace and your purpose. When you understand that controlling others is not your assignment, but controlling your reactions is, you unlock a new level of strength. You begin to walk with wisdom. You stop reacting out of fear or insecurity and start responding from a place of power and clarity. That's where transformation begins, not when others shift, but when you do. One of the most damaging habits we fall into is comparison. It's subtle, it's sneaky, and it steals joy without us even realizing it. You could be having a great day, grateful, peaceful, confident, and then with one glance at someone else's highlight reel, you start to question everything. You wonder if you're behind, if you're doing enough, if your life measures up. Comparison whispers lies that tell you you're not good enough, not successful enough, not attractive enough. But the truth is your value doesn't come from how you stack up next to someone else. It comes from who you are, and more importantly, who you are becoming. When you constantly compare yourself to others, you rob yourself of the ability to appreciate your own journey. You stop seeing your growth because you're too focused on someone else's destination. You miss the beauty of your process because you're measuring it against a story that isn't yours. Everyone's path is different. Everyone's timing is unique. Just because someone else is succeeding doesn't mean you're failing. Their win doesn't take anything away from you. Life is not a competition. You're not racing against anyone but the person you were yesterday. Comparison can also distort your perspective. Social media makes it easy to see people's best moments, their filtered photos, their highlight reels. But what you don't see is the struggle behind the scenes, the doubt, the pressure, the pain they may be carrying silently. When you compare your full story, your ups and downs, your process, your waiting season to someone's polished exterior, you're comparing reality to illusion, and that's never a fair or honest measurement. You begin to feel like you're not enough, not because you're lacking, but because you believed a lie that someone else's journey is the standard. Instead of comparison, what brings growth is inspiration. There's a difference. Comparison makes you feel less than. Inspiration lifts you up and motivates you to rise higher. When you're inspired by others, you can celebrate their success while still honoring your own progress. You can learn from them without losing yourself in the process. You can let their story show you what's possible without using it as a ruler to measure your worth. It's also important to understand that God didn't create you to be like someone else. He created you to be you, with your unique gifts, your voice, your ideas, your purpose. If you spend all your time trying to imitate others, you miss out on the very calling that was designed specifically for you. No one else can do what you were created to do in the way you were meant to do it. That's why your authenticity is your superpower. Your difference is your strength. When you embrace that, you stop striving to be someone else and start thriving in who you truly are. Comparison also creates discontent. It blinds you to the blessings in your own life. You could have things people are praying for, your health, your home, your peace, but if you're always focused on what others have, you'll never be satisfied. Gratitude is the antidote to comparison.
When you focus on what you do have, on how far you've come, on the doors that did open, your perspective shifts. You stop seeing life through the lens of lack and start seeing it through the lens of grace. When you let go of comparison, you free yourself to grow at your own pace. You don't need to rush or compete. You don't need to match someone else's timeline. You just need to keep showing up, keep doing your best, and trust that the seeds you're planting will bloom in the right season. Your path may look different, but that doesn't mean it's wrong. Often the most meaningful breakthroughs come in the hidden, quiet, slow seasons, the ones no one sees but God honors. You are not behind. You are not missing out. You are not less valuable because someone else got there first. You're on a divine timeline. What's for you will not miss you. And the moment you stop comparing and start focusing on your own growth, your peace will return. Your confidence will rise, and you'll begin to see the beauty of your life, not as a shadow of someone else's, but as the masterpiece it's always been.
Your value doesn't come from people. It doesn't come from how many followers you have, how popular you are, how well others speak about you, or how much recognition you receive. Those things can feel good for a moment, but they are temporary, shifting with people's moods and opinions. If you tie your worth to the approval of others, you will live in a constant state of insecurity, always trying to earn acceptance, constantly measuring your value by someone else's reaction. That's no way to live. True freedom begins when you realize that your value is not based on what people say, but on what God says about you. God called you worthy before anyone had an opinion. You were chosen, loved, and set apart before you were even formed. That means your identity isn't up for debate. You don't need to earn love. You don't need to perform to be accepted. You are already enough, not because of what you do, but because of who you are and whose you are. When that truth sinks in, it changes how you walk into a room. You stop striving to impress and start resting in your purpose. You no longer feel the pressure to be someone you're not. You begin to live from a place of confidence, not competition. The problem with depending on people for validation is that people are inconsistent. One day they'll celebrate you, the next they might criticize you. Some will support you only when it benefits them. Others will project their own insecurity onto you and try to dim your light. If your identity is rooted in their approval, then their inconsistency becomes your instability. But when your identity is rooted in God, it doesn't matter who comes and goes. You're not shaken when someone walks away. You're not devastated when people don't understand your journey. You're secure because you know who you are. Sometimes we look to people to fill places in our hearts that only God can fill. We want affirmation, belonging, and encouragement, and those things are important, but when they become our source, we'll always be hungry for more. The truth is, only God can speak to the deepest parts of you. Only He can remind you of your worth when the world makes you feel small. Only He can affirm your identity when people misunderstand or mislabel you. That's why you have to tune into His voice more than any other. What He says about you matters more than what anyone else thinks. This also means you don't have to shrink to be accepted. You don't have to dim your light to make others comfortable. You don't have to water down your gifts or silence your voice just to fit in. If someone can't handle the fullness of who you are, that's not your problem. That's not a cue for you to become less. That's a cue for you to walk in boldness and let God surround you with people who will see your value and honor it. You are not created to be tolerated. You were created to shine. Knowing your worth also helps you navigate relationships with clarity. When you understand your value, you don't settle for treatment that falls beneath your standard. You don't beg for love, attention, or respect. You recognize that anyone who truly sees your heart won't take it for granted. And if someone walks away, you don't fall apart. You trust that God removes what no longer serves your growth to make room for something better. This level of self-awareness comes from spending time in God's presence, from listening to His truth more than the noise of the world. When you walk in your worth, you stop needing to prove yourself. You realize that your identity is not based on performance, achievements, or status. You don't have to strive to be important. You already are. And the more you own that truth, the more your life begins to reflect it. You'll make decisions based on purpose, not pressure. You'll build relationships based on mutual respect, not fear of being alone. You'll pursue dreams because you believe in your calling, not because you're trying to compete with someone else's. There is a quiet power in knowing who you are. It allows you to walk away from what doesn't align with your value. It empowers you to speak up, to stand tall, to keep showing up even when you're overlooked. People might miss what you carry, but that doesn't make it any less real. Your worth is not up for negotiation. It was settled long before anyone had a say. The moment you stop waiting for others to recognize it and start walking in it yourself, your life will begin to align with the identity God already gave you. Your heart is the core of who you are. It holds your emotions, your thoughts, your desires, your faith. and your peace, everything you do flows from it. Your words, your actions, your decisions. That's why it's so important to guard it. Life has a way of throwing things at you that can harden your heart if you're not careful. Disappointment, betrayal, loss, criticism, these things have the power to plant seeds of bitterness, fear, anger, or discouragement. If those seeds take root and grow unchecked, they can start shaping how you see yourself, how you treat others, and how you experience the world. That's why protecting your heart is not a passive suggestion, it's a spiritual responsibility. Guarding your heart doesn't mean you shut yourself off from people or become emotionally numb. It means you become intentional about what you allow in. You become aware of what you're feeding your mind, what you're giving your attention to, and who you're letting influence your emotions. The music you listen to, the conversations you engage in, the content you consume, all of it affects the condition of your heart. If you're constantly exposing yourself to negativity, drama, fear, and judgment, it's going to poison your inner world over time. But when you choose to surround yourself with peace, wisdom, truth, and encouragement, your heart stays soft, steady, and aligned with God's voice. Protecting your peace means choosing your battles wisely. Not everything deserves your energy. Not every offense needs a reaction. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is walk away and stay calm. People may misunderstand you, provoke you, or try to pull you into conflict, but when you're anchored internally, their chaos doesn't have to become your chaos. You can disagree without becoming disrespectful. You can be hurt without becoming bitter. You can feel emotion without letting it control your response. That's strength, not in how loud you are, but in how steady you are when everything around you is trying to shake you. There are times when the best way to guard your heart is through boundaries. Not everyone deserves full access to you. Some people are draining, toxic, or manipulative, and keeping them close will eventually affect your peace. Loving people doesn't mean allowing them to constantly disrupt your emotional and spiritual health. You can love someone and still create space. You can forgive someone and still protect your future. Boundaries are not walls, they are gates. They don't shut everyone out, but they do filter what gets in. And when your heart is healthy, you begin to recognize which relationships feed your soul and which ones slowly drain it. A guarded heart also means filtering your own thoughts. Not every thought you have is true, and not every feeling needs to be followed. Sometimes your emotions lie. Sometimes your fears exaggerate the reality. You have to learn to take those thoughts captive and ask, is this aligned with truth? Is this aligned with faith, or is this coming from a place of insecurity, pain, or past trauma? Just because a thought is loud doesn't mean it deserves to lead your decisions. Peace comes when you learn to let truth lead, not emotion. In seasons of stress, loss, or uncertainty, guarding your heart becomes even more important. These are the moments when you're most vulnerable, when your defenses are low and your spirit is tired. That's when bitterness can sneak in. That's when worry can take over. But if you stay rooted through prayer, worship, gratitude, and time in God's presence, you can weather the storm without it changing who you are on the inside. You can walk through hard seasons and still come out with your peace intact. Not because it was easy, but because you were intentional about guarding what matters most. There's a difference between reacting out of a wounded heart and responding from a healed heart. A wounded heart lashes out, shuts down, or seeks validation in unhealthy places. A healed heart speaks with clarity, moves with wisdom, and trusts that God is in control. And healing doesn't mean nothing ever hurts you. It means you no longer let pain define you. You feel it, process it, and release it. You don't let it build a home in your spirit. Guarding your heart is not about living in fear. It's about living with intention. It's about knowing that your peace, your joy, your faith, and your clarity are worth protecting. When your heart is healthy, your life is healthy. You make better choices. You attract better relationships. You live with freedom and confidence. What happens on the outside no longer controls what's happening on the inside. That's where real power begins. Not in controlling life, but in maintaining a heart that stays whole in the middle of it all. Sometimes life doesn't go the way you planned. You prayed, believed, waited, and still the door didn't open. You gave your best, stayed faithful, and yet things fell apart. It's easy to become discouraged when what you hoped for doesn't happen. It's natural to question why things didn't work out, why certain people left, why the opportunity slipped away. But there comes a point in your journey where you must learn to let go of what you don't understand and trust that God has a greater purpose behind every disappointment. Letting go is not a sign of weakness. It doesn't mean you didn't care or that what you lost wasn't valuable. It means you've chosen to trust that your life is in the hands of a God who sees beyond what you can see. He sees the full picture. He knows what's around the corner. Sometimes the thing you're holding on to so tightly is actually limiting you. It may feel familiar. It may even be good, but God
God's calling you into something better, and to step into the new, you have to release the old. It takes faith to move forward without having all the answers. It takes courage to close the chapter when the ending doesn't make sense. But holding on to what no longer serves you only creates frustration, heaviness, and delay. It becomes a weight on your spirit, dragging you back into past seasons that no longer fit who you are becoming. What once helped you may now be hindering you. And sometimes God removes things not to hurt you, but to make room for the new thing He's about to do. There are seasons in life when silence is the answer. You won't get an explanation. You won't understand why things happen the way they did. But peace isn't found in understanding. It's found in surrender. When you stop trying to figure it all out and simply trust that God is still working, you begin to experience a deeper kind of rest. A rest that comes not from knowing, but from believing that He's still good, even when things don't feel good. Letting go may mean releasing your need for closure. Some people won't apologize. Some stories won't end the way you hope. But you can still heal without getting everything you think you need. You can still thrive without all the pieces fitting perfectly. Closure is not something someone else gives you. It's something you choose. It's a decision to stop replaying the pain, stop waiting for answers, and start walking in freedom. This isn't about pretending you're not hurt. It's about choosing not to let the hurt define your future. You may carry scars, but those scars can become signs of strength instead of shame. They remind you of what you've survived, not of what you lost. They show that even in disappointment, you're still standing, still growing, still moving forward. Sometimes the hardest thing to let go of is not the past, but the idea of how you thought your life would look. You had a timeline, a vision, a plan, and when that plan unraveled, you felt lost. But often God's detours lead to destiny. His redirections are not rejections. They're reroutes that bring you into alignment with what's best. You may have to walk through valleys, face closed doors, and experience delays, but none of it is wasted. Every step, even the painful ones, is being used for your good. Letting go also creates space for God to do something new. As long as your hands are full of yesterday, you can't receive tomorrow. As long as you're focused on what you lost, you can't see what's coming. When you surrender your expectations and release your grip on what didn't work, you open your heart to the possibility of something better than you imagined. You create room for new connections, new dreams, new opportunities. This process doesn't happen overnight. It's a daily choice. Sometimes you have to let go again and again, especially when the memories come back or the pain resurfaces. But over time, the hold it has on you weakens, and in its place, peace grows, joy returns, hope rises. Letting go is a gift you give yourself. It's not about erasing the past. It's about reclaiming your future. You were never meant to live in yesterday. You were created to move forward, to grow, to evolve. And as you keep walking in faith, trusting that God's hand is guiding every step, you'll begin to see beauty rise from brokenness, strength emerge from sorrow, and purpose unfold from pain. Because with God, nothing is wasted and everything can be redeemed.